Okay, well, before then, let me, start it this way. You see, back then, 2004, 2005, as has been pointed out, we had a lot of weak banks. Out of the 89, many of them, after the central bank stress test, revealed that a lot of them were weak. After the consolidation, 25 of them, emerged. Now, what is happening now is a case of recapitalization, not as a result of the fact that these banks are having problems. Okay, because if you take the financial soundness, what central bank calls financial soundness indicators, okay, these indicators are all looking good, going by the numbers. What are these indicators? You talk about the capital adequacy ratio of banks, the ratio of capital to a bank's risk-weighted assets. Okay. Risk-weighted assets are loans. Loans are assets to the bank. When banks give out loans, they put them. Yes, no, they record them as assets. Okay. So that your capital, okay, the capital to your loans, okay, must be going by the Basel requirements is 10.5. The Basel III actually specifies 8% and then additional 2.5, making 10.5. Now in Nigeria, our capital adequacy ratio is central bank has put between 10 and 15. And the average in the industry today is around 13.7. So within the range. Okay, so in terms of capital adequacy ratio, our banks are good. If you also look at liquidity ratio, okay, liquidity ratio, the central bank specifies 30% liquidity ratio. So, but the banks today, the average in the industry is 40%. So banks are having a liquidity ratio that is in excess of even the minimum specified by the central bank. Okay. Then you also talk about non-performing loans. Okay. Central bank says your non-performing loans must not exceed 5%. The average in the industry today is around 4.8%. So when you look at these prudential ratios, they're called prudential ratios. Okay, our banks, are looking good. So what the central bank is doing is not because the banks are having problems, but is meant to actually make them stronger, strengthen them to be able to, compete. Now, again, on the issue of this retained earnings, central bank is concerned about the quality of capital. Yes, retained earnings is a component of tier 1 capital. Under the Basel, when you hear Basel is a place in Switzerland. Yeah. Okay, the Bank for International Settlement is there, and they had this. There is the Basel Committee on Banking. That, of course, when they started as a committee of central bank governors. Okay, so these people, came up with rules to do with banking supervision and regulation, meant to strengthen banking supervision and regulation, globally. Okay, they started as just like 10 of them. Much later, they expanded, added a good number of countries. But in Africa, Nigeria is not a member. So it's only South Africa that we find that is a member of the Bank of International Settlement. So why am I mentioning this? That Nigeria is not even bound to follow. It's not under any obligation to follow the definitions, given by that Basel III, because Nigeria is not a member. But of course, Nigeria has been also following the Basel III Accord. And what Basel III, if you look at definition of capital by that Basel III, okay, it defines tier 1 capital as share capital plus retained earnings. So retained earnings is actually part of the share capital based on that definition. But central bank is saying that for the purpose of the recapitalization, retained earnings will not be allowed because it is concerned about the quality of the capital. Now, speaking about the quality of capital, I told you, I started by saying that share capital is the permanent form of capital. Okay, what is retained earnings? A bank makes profit and decides not to distribute all of it as dividend. So part of that profit is kept aside, and the dividend you distribute is a function of cash. It's partly a function of your cash, your liquidity. Okay, you can declare profit, but you don't have the cash to back it up. So that tells you that some of the retained earnings may not be cash backed, may just be paper. And why is it paper? It is paper because when you give out a loan and you expect interest, that interest will come, what do? You go and say, you credit your interest income. You say you're expecting interest, even when it has not come, you credit it. So at the end of the period, you declare that as part of your profit, when in actual fact the money has not come in. So what the central bank has done is to say that banks must categorize their non-performing loans and provide for them. A loan is said to be non-performing if interest and principal has not been paid or is outstanding for up to 90 days. So if it is 90 days, once it is 90 days and above, then it is non-performing. Okay, so if you have between 90 days, if interest and principal, if they are outstanding for between 90 days and 180 days, the central bank says, regard such as substandard. That loan is substandard, and provide for it 10%. In other words, go to your income, take out 10% of your income. Okay, if the loan is outstanding for between 180 and 360 days, regard it as doubtful. Provide 50%. Okay, when a principal and interest, if they are outstanding for more than 360 days, regard that loan as lost. Provide 100%. In other words, if you have lent out 1 million naira and it has not come, both interest and principal and interest, have not come for over 1 year, see that as lost. What do you do with that 1 million? Go to your books, hit your capital. So that 1 million will go and wipe off your capital. I don't know whether you're getting what I'm saying. Yes. So in 2020 and over the years, particularly 2020, 2021, central bank came up with what they call forbearance. Forbearance is I want to refrain from enforcing that provision that says if money doesn't come after 1 year, go and use it to wipe off your capital. So central bank allowed banks to be carrying it because of COVID, and said go and renegotiate with your those who are owing you, with your debtors. I will allow you. No more, don't remove your capital any longer. So that way, banks' retained earnings was growing. But from what I've described now, you know that their retained earning is not there. There's no cash because no money has come in. So the fact that central banks was giving forbearance, okay, was also enabling the banks to build retained earnings. So if you allow them to include those retained earnings as part of their capital, it means they are including things that are not
tangible.
Tangible, that's the word. They're not tangible, they're just paper. So that's why central bank says, what we want is fresh capital. If we say you want to increase, bring fresh capital. Don't tell us, don't do any paper,
adjustments.
Paper adjustments.
Prof,